Hi and welcome. Have you ever gone to work feeling completely empty inside? Not physically tired, emotionally tired. The kind of tired that makes you question your future, your value, and even yourself. Most people think a job only gives money. But sometimes, a difficult job changes the way you think forever. And today, I want to tell you a story about a man who believed his life was going nowhere, until one exhausting job slowly rebuilt his mindset. So wherever you are right now, driving home, resting after work, or learning English one sentence at a time, stay with me, because this story may feel very close to your own life. Part 1. Feeling stuck. Daniel was 26 years old when he started working at a shipping warehouse in Chicago. At that time, his life felt heavy. He lived alone in a small apartment. His bank account was almost empty, and every morning he woke up with anxiety about the future. The hardest part was not money. It was comparison. Every day, Daniel watched old friends succeed online. Some were buying homes, some were traveling, others were building careers and families. Meanwhile, Daniel felt completely lost. One evening, after failing another job interview, he sat alone in his car and whispered something painful. "I think I stopped believing in myself." That sentence scared him, because deep down, he knew it was true. A few days later, a warehouse called him about a night shift position. The work was simple. Scan boxes, lift packages, repeat for 12 hours. The pay was low. The shifts were exhausting. But Daniel needed money badly, so he accepted the job. On his first night, he immediately hated the place. The building was cold. Machines screamed loudly. Workers looked exhausted. Nobody smiled. Around 3 a.m., Daniel stood in the restroom staring at himself in the mirror. "This can't be my life," he thought. He felt ashamed, not because of the work itself, but because he believed the job represented his value as a person. And honestly, many people silently feel the same way. When life feels small, people begin seeing themselves as small too. For several weeks, Daniel worked quietly without speaking much to anyone. Then one night during break time, an older worker named Marcus sat beside him. Marcus had worked there for over 10 years. He looked calm, disciplined, and strangely peaceful. After a few minutes, Marcus asked, "You hate this place, don't you?" Daniel laughed softly. "Is it that obvious?" Marcus smiled. "Everybody hates it at first." Then he said something Daniel never forgot. "Most people think this job is punishment, but sometimes a hard job is a classroom." Daniel frowned. "What does that mean?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. "This place teaches discipline, patience, and emotional control. Some people become stronger here. Others become bitter." That sentence stayed in Daniel's mind for the rest of the night. Some people become stronger here. Others become bitter. Same building, different mindset. For the first time, Daniel started wondering if his real problem was not the warehouse, but the way he viewed his life. Part 2. Small changes. After that conversation with Marcus, something slowly began changing inside Daniel. Not overnight, not dramatically, but little by little, he stopped seeing himself as a victim of life. Before, Daniel complained about everything: the economy, bad luck, his old bosses, his past mistakes. But now he started asking a different question. What can I control? That question changed the way he worked. He began arriving early instead of barely arriving on time. He stopped using his phone during shifts. He complained less. He observed the workers who stayed calm under pressure. And he noticed something important. The strongest people were not always the smartest. They were simply reliable. They continued working even when tired, even when bored, even when life felt unfair. One night, the warehouse became extremely busy. Boxes piled everywhere. Supervisors shouted loudly. Several workers became angry and frustrated. But Marcus stayed calm. Steady breathing, steady movements, no panic. Later, Daniel asked him, "How do you stay so calm?" Marcus answered immediately, "Because panic never solves problems." Then he added, "Pressure doesn't create character, it reveals character." That sentence hit Daniel deeply, because he realized how emotionally weak he had become. Every small problem ruined his mood. Every difficult moment made him angry. For years, he waited for life to become easier before becoming stronger. Now he understood something important. Strength must come first. Slowly, Daniel also changed his habits outside work. Instead of wasting hours scrolling on his phone, he started reading books about discipline, communication, and mindset. At first, reading felt difficult. His mind was constantly distracted. But over time, he became calmer and more focused. One evening, a younger worker named Kevin became frustrated after making several mistakes. "I'm terrible at this job," Kevin muttered angrily. Daniel looked at him quietly. Months earlier, he probably would have said the same thing about himself. Instead, he replied, "You're not terrible. You're just inexperienced." Kevin looked surprised, and in that moment, Daniel realized something powerful. The words people repeat to themselves slowly become their identity. If someone constantly says, "I'm a failure," their behavior begins matching that belief. But if they believe they can improve, their actions slowly change too. Weeks passed, then months, and without noticing it immediately, Daniel became more confident. Not loud confidence, not fake confidence, real confidence. The kind built through difficult days, discipline, and consistency. One morning after work, Daniel stopped at a coffee shop before going home. While sitting near the window, he suddenly realized something shocking. For the first time in years, he did not hate himself anymore. His life was still hard. His apartment was still small. His paycheck was still limited. But internally, he was becoming stronger. And maybe that was the beginning of real change. Part 3. Nobody was coming to save him. By the time Daniel had worked at the warehouse for 8 months, his mindset had changed completely. The job was still exhausting. The night shifts were still difficult. His body still hurt after long weeks. But mentally, he was no longer the same person. One night during break time, a young worker named Luis sat beside him and complained, "This job is ruining my life." Daniel stayed quiet for a moment, because months earlier, he believed the exact same thing. Then Luis added, "I'm just waiting for my real life to start." Daniel looked at him carefully and asked, "What if this is your real life?" Luis frowned. "What do you mean?" Daniel leaned back slowly. I mean your future is being built by what you do today, not someday. Today. That conversation stayed in Daniel's mind for the rest of the shift, because he finally understood a painful truth. Nobody was coming to save him. Not luck, not motivation, not some perfect opportunity. If his life was going to improve, he had to improve first. That realization felt heavy at first, but later it became empowering. Daniel became more disciplined with money. He stopped buying useless things online. He started saving carefully. Not because he suddenly loved money, but because he finally respected his future. One Sunday, Daniel visited his mother outside Chicago. During dinner, she looked at him and smiled softly. "You seem different lately." Daniel laughed quietly. "Different good or different bad?" "Different calm," she answered. That surprised him, because inside he still felt imperfect. But maybe growth becomes visible to others before we notice it ourselves. His mother looked at him for a moment and said, "For a while, I was worried about you. You looked lost." Daniel lowered his eyes silently. Because she was right. He had been lost, not physically, mentally, without discipline, without direction, without belief in himself. Then his mother smiled again. "But now," she said, "you look stronger?" That sentence stayed in Daniel's mind for days. Later that week, a supervisor blamed Daniel for a mistake he did not make. Months earlier, Daniel would have become angry immediately. But this time, he stayed calm and explained the situation respectfully. A few minutes later, the supervisor returned and apologized. And strangely, Daniel felt proud of himself, not because he was right, but because he controlled his emotions. That moment mattered deeply, because emotional control is one of the clearest signs of maturity. Near the end of the shift, Marcus walked beside him and said, "You handled that situation well." Daniel smiled slightly. Old me would have exploded. Marcus laughed. "Yeah, I remember." Then he became serious. Your life changes the moment you stop seeing yourself as a victim. Daniel looked around the warehouse, the loud machines, the tired workers, the endless boxes, and suddenly he realized something important. The warehouse had not changed. He had changed. And that mindset shift was quietly changing his future too. Part 4. The opportunity hidden inside pressure. About 1 year after Daniel started working at the warehouse, something unexpected happened. Regional managers visited the building one night. Whenever management arrived, everybody became nervous. Supervisors shouted more. Workers moved faster. Stress filled the entire warehouse. Later that night, a serious shipping problem happened. Packages were delayed. Drivers became angry. Nobody knew how to organize the situation. Most workers avoided responsibility. But before Daniel could overthink, he heard himself say, "I can help." That surprised him, because the old Daniel always avoided pressure. For the next several hours, he helped organize shipments, calm frustrated workers, and solve problems. The work was exhausting, but he stayed focused. No complaining, no panic, just solutions. Around sunrise, one senior manager looked at him and asked, "What's your name?" "Daniel." The manager nodded slowly. "You handle pressure well." Daniel almost laughed. Nobody had ever described him that way before. For years, he saw himself as weak and average. But now, people were beginning to trust him. A few days later, Daniel was called into the office. The supervisor handed him a paper and said, "We're opening a team leader position. We think you should apply." Daniel stared at the paper silently. Part of him felt excited. Another part felt afraid. What if I fail? He thought. That night, he called Marcus and asked for advice. I don't know if I'm ready, Daniel admitted. Marcus laughed softly. Most people never feel ready. Then he added, confidence comes after action, not before. Daniel sat quietly holding the phone. Because deep down, he knew Marcus was right. Fear had controlled many years of his life. Fear of failure. Fear of embarrassment. Fear of not being good enough. But now he understood something important. Growth always feels uncomfortable at first. The next morning, Daniel submitted the application. Weeks later, he officially became a team leader. The promotion did not make him rich, but emotionally, it changed something important inside him. For the first time in years, he felt useful. Workers came to him with problems. New employees asked him questions. Managers trusted his decisions. And slowly, Daniel realized the real transformation was not the promotion itself. The real transformation was the person he became while earning it. One night during break, Kevin asked him, "How did you change your mindset?" Daniel thought carefully before answering. Finally, he said, "I stopped waiting for life to become easy." Kevin stayed quiet. Then Daniel added, "I learned that discipline is more reliable than motivation." That sentence became one of the most important lessons of his life. Because motivation comes and goes. But disciplined habits quietly build the future. Near the end of the shift, Daniel walked alone through the warehouse. The same cold air, the same loud machines, the same long nights. But he no longer felt trapped there. Because internally, he had stopped seeing himself as powerless. And that changed everything. Part 5. The job that rebuilt him. 2 years after Daniel first entered the warehouse in Chicago, another opportunity appeared. A manager recommended him for a better operations job at a logistics company. Better salary, better hours, better future. Years earlier, Daniel would have felt desperate for the opportunity. But now he felt calm. Because his confidence no longer depended completely on a job title. During the interview, the hiring manager asked, "What did your warehouse job teach you?" Daniel thought quietly before answering. Then he said, "It taught me discipline, patience, and how to stay calm under pressure." For the first time in his life, Daniel understood something important. His hardest season had become his greatest qualification. A week later, he got the job. That evening, he visited the warehouse one last time before leaving. Marcus was checking inventory near the loading area. When Daniel showed him the offer letter, Marcus smiled proudly. "Well," he said, "looks like you finally made it out." Daniel smiled softly. But after a moment, he shook his head. "No," he replied. "The real change happened before this job offer." Marcus looked at him carefully. Daniel continued, "This place changed the way I think. It taught me how to handle difficult situations without giving up on myself." Marcus nodded slowly, because he already understood. The real promotion was never the new position. It was the mindset. That night, Daniel and Marcus sat outside the warehouse together for the last time. Workers walked in for another long night shift. Machines hummed loudly inside the building. Daniel looked at the tired employees and remembered his first night there. The shame, the frustration, the hopelessness. He barely recognized that old version of himself anymore. Not because life had become perfect, but because internally he had become stronger. Months later, Daniel adapted quickly to his new job. Stress no longer controlled him. Pressure no longer destroyed his confidence. The warehouse had trained him emotionally. One evening after work, Daniel walked alone through a quiet street in Chicago and thought about his journey. For years, he believed success would change his mindset. But the truth was the opposite. His mindset changed first, and then his life slowly followed. That realization stayed with him forever. Maybe your life feels difficult right now. Maybe your job feels exhausting. Maybe you feel behind everyone else. But never underestimate what hard seasons can teach you. Sometimes the job you hate today is quietly preparing you for a stronger future. Discipline, patience, emotional strength, resilience. These qualities are built during struggle, not comfort. So if life feels heavy right now, do not give up on yourself too early. Your current situation is not your final identity. And if this story connected with you, consider subscribing to the channel for more slow and meaningful English stories that help you improve both your English and your mindset naturally. Take care of yourself and keep moving forward.